Hey guys, I am Hudson Phillips. I'm a screenwriter and producer from Atlanta, Georgia, and this is ScriptBlast, a podcast to help you write better screenplays and write a better life. Just a quick reminder about our brand new online community, ScriptBlast Members. Maybe you struggle with the productivity side of screenwriting, the sitting down and getting it done, or maybe you're frustrated that you have a finished screenplay but aren't getting any traction from the typical query letters or contests. And that's exactly why I created ScriptBlast Members to bring together screenwriters who are serious about the craft to boost your productivity and build a stronger community. You'll get weekly video lessons, access to a resource library, monthly group coaching calls, and a curated community of like-minded writers to help you finish more scripts faster, upgrade your network, and turn your hobby into a career. Visit members.scriptblast.com to try it free today. Today, I talk with writer, director, producer, actor Victoria Negri about her brilliant and beautiful and very personal film, Gold Star, which is now available on Amazon. Victoria and I talk about how to explore your personal struggles through your writing and filmmaking, the importance of finding your tribe, tips on networking for introverts, and some practical advice for those of you who want to make your own movies. We recorded this one a few months back, so there may be a few dated references, but here's my chat with Victoria. Victoria, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Hudson?
I am doing great. We are in, I don't know when this is going to be released or what the world's going to look like then. It's kind of changing week to week. But we're in what, week maybe 4 or 5 right now of this shutdown?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are and
Where you
how
started?
how deep your denial was about what was going on. Because in New York, it shut down, and a lot of people were still going out and not really listening. But then, like the official, everything shutting down. Yeah, I think maybe 5 weeks for four
Yeah.
four or 5 weeks. Yeah.
So you were in New York and you kind of got out fairly quickly, I'm assuming, and,
I
went home to
was.
family?
Yeah, I was in New York and Brooklyn, and then I made the decision. I was talking to my mom and some friends who went to the hospitals and were saying like, "Get out of here, it's bad."
Right, right.
And like just in case you get sick, it'd be better to be somewhere, that's not so insane. So yeah, I like rented a car in a really dramatic way of like wiping it all down, throwing a mask on, and just driving to Connecticut, dropping it off, sanitizing the car, and just running to my mom's house and quarantining for 2 weeks until I
Yeah.
could interact with my family without being as scared. But
Oh,
yeah, it's
wow.
just
That's so
bizarre.
crazy.
Yeah.
What a world. So what does that do for you? And we'll go back and we'll kind of get into your history and stuff, but just currently workload, I know that you have a film coming up. What does this do for you just creatively right now?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like creatively, I'm just trying to, accepting what's going on and being like, well, this pause is an opportunity to create other things and to write a lot more. I wrote a podcast script for something that's a podcast called Day by Day. I co-wrote it with a friend,
Cool.
and that's coming out soon. And
Nice.
yeah, I'm working on another feature screenplay. I'm still kind of like figuring out exactly what that is, but it's definitely more genre focused than things I've done in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to do the things that I have control over right now because, like, my feature in development, that, the gears were starting to roll on that. We don't know what's happening with that. And, like, we were about to attach an actor for the lead role, and we're waiting on hearing her schedule now because we don't really know exactly what that's going to
Right.
be. So I'm just trying not to, focus on the uncertainty of everything and just do things that I can do with myself or collaborate with friends that aren't even in the same room as me. Figuring that out.
Yeah. I love that perspective, and I feel like it's taken me a long time to get there at this particular time. Normally I'm a very positive, like upbeat kind of guy. And so to be this really hit me hard, just because a lot of things professionally stalled out. But I love that what you said about doing the things that you can control, because I think that's so important for not just right now, but for always, of like, in the film business, we are constantly hitting roadblocks. We are constantly getting to hurdles and being shut down and being rejected. And that's kind of my go-to. What can I do right now? I can't control what this person thought of my screenplay. I can't control what this person
Mm.
thought of my film, but I can go right now and I can create something beautiful on my own, and I have control over that, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why I love writing so much because, like, even in the early stages, as frustrating as it is to like stare at that blank final draft page, it's all up
Mhm.
to you. Like, you can do whatever you want with that, and even if you never show someone the thing that you wrote, it's like that's whatever you want it to be right now until like people come attached and maybe there's money and decisions made that you're like, I don't know about that, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
early on it's yeah there's a lot of freedom in writing that I enjoy, that gives me that sense of control. That you're right,
right,
like we can be so beaten down by stuff in this industry, and it's about like
yeah.
we want to have long careers for our entire lives, that we can't let it get us down.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of required. You've got to learn that skill set that doesn't come easy to a lot of people. Yeah, so you're an actress, you're a filmmaker, you're a writer. Which one of those did you start with? Was there one that was kind of that got you into this, or was it all of those things just dropped in your lap all at once? Like, I want to do all of it.
Yeah, I was just chatting about this yesterday with somebody, how I feel like when I was really young, I wanted to make movies, but I think I didn't really know like what a director did, or how does one even go about like becoming a director. And I think
Right.
also because I was so shy in like asserting anything for myself as a young adult. Like when I was a kid, I was really rambunctious and out there, but as like a high schooler and young person, I was like brutally, painfully shy. So
Yeah.
I really started writing and acting because I remember having the thought. I always loved movies. I always wanted to be involved in movies, and I had that bizarre like, you know what I should do to get out of my comfort zone? I should act. That'll be the thing that
Yeah.
that does it. That'll make me more confident. And it's also the most obvious thing. Like when you're watching films, like you all see the actors. It's like an obvious
Right.
skill set to learn how to do. So yeah, I just set out doing that. I went to NYU for acting, and then after I graduated, I started acting in films, and quickly realized like I had a lot of ideas for stories on my own, but also I had a lot of like notes of like, I wouldn't tell if I was the director, maybe I would say this or do this differently. And
Yeah.
it was interesting to see like those instincts starting to come out and my confidence growing. So I think it was always in me to write and direct, but I think it was just a confidence and knowledge thing. Like, how does one even do that? So once I saw people
Right.
doing it as an actor, I was like, oh, I think I can do this.
Would you say that, like, are all of those passions still there for you at equal levels now, or are you like, oh well, acting doesn't quite do it for me now that I've discovered filmmaking, or do you still enjoy every piece of it?
I still enjoy I haven't acted in a really long time, and I think for me, I would love to act in something, but for me, it's about
Yeah.
like it would have to be something really good and with people I really trust and that I think
Right.
are awesome. Because I don't know, I hustled for so many years right after graduating. It would just go on audition after audition for scripts that I didn't think were that good, for roles that were just
Mm.
really one note and boring. And yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested, like for me what's really important is working on something that I find challenging and fascinating and could like sustain years of work for me, of just being like really into a concept and a story, and also
Yeah.
working with people that challenge me and that make me a better filmmaker and writer and actor, like whatever hat I'm wearing, that just make me better, and that
Wow. Yeah.
are kind. So yeah, those are the things. Those are the things that matter. I think that the hat has really shifted to writing, directing, but
Uh huh.
yeah, I would. I miss acting for sure.
Has that was that always part of the goal? Because the story you hear with a lot of actors is just the whole hustle of it, and the whole, gosh, I'm having to do this lame walk on role every single time. Were you able to be choosy from the beginning because you knew you wanted to also be making films, or did you kind of go through that period where, oh, you were just taking anything you could get?
Oh my god, I did everything.
Okay,
I
yeah, yeah,
I was so happy. Like I remember the first thing I ever did before I even graduated high school. I was an extra in a student film, and I was just happy to be
yeah.
like surrounded by people
Yeah,
making a film. It was so awesome. But
yeah.
then yeah, after I just wanted to be on set. But it was that battle of like, oh, I'm learning and I'm doing the thing I love doing, but it's not that interesting.
Hmm.
So I definitely, I think right around when I made my feature Gold Star, I started to say no to everything and stopped auditioning pretty much. If I didn't love it, I was like, why am I going to waste a few hours tonight prepping for an audition for something that I read the script and don't like it, when I can like
Right.
write my own script.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Would you say those two things are pretty tied to each other, that you started writing your own scripts because you weren't getting roles that you were offered? Like, was that part of it? Like, oh, I want to write myself something juicy that I can actually dig into as an actress?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I I started I remember like I used to do a lot of those and I know you're in Atlanta. They probably have
Uh-huh.
these things down there, but those like pay to meet people sessions.
Yeah.
Like pay $30 to meet a casting director for 15 minutes. So
Right.
I did a lot of those and wasted a ton of
Yeah.
money. But
Yeah.
I started actually like testing this theory out, and I would just like write monologues for myself and
Huh.
scenes for myself, and they wouldn't be from anything, but I would like, that's where I first started like testing this stuff and trying it. I would just say, oh, it's from a short film, and I would just like give it a title, and they
Right.
wouldn't really ask many questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I started to get really, really bold with it. Like I remember right when I did my feature, afterwards, the first audition I had, they wanted me to do a monologue, and I was like, I hate doing monologues. I don't want to do a monologue. So I just walked in there and I said to the team, I was like, can I just talk to you guys and like tell you a story that's real from my
Huh.
life? That's not like,
Yeah.
that's not a monologue, but it's just like a story so you can get a sense of me.
Wow.
So and then I got the part, but they ended up cutting the role from
Wow.
the, yeah, they cut the role
Oh
from the
man.
film though, so it was funny.
I
But
love that.
yeah, I think it's about control for me. Like actors have such little control.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that. So, okay, let's go back to your kind of path to Gold Star. You started out making short films, is that correct?
No, I actually had made as a director, Gold Star was the first thing I did.
Wow,
Um,
really?
yeah, I just launched right into it. I'd produced a bunch of shorts. I AD'd a lot. I quickly learned that I hated ADing.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I just like took the actor hat off, did as many crew positions as I could, and then I had the script for Gold Star churning, and I started to interview other directors. And as I was doing that, I got like very quickly uncomfortable, realizing like nobody really could tell this story the way I like do it justice how I wanted to, and it just meant way too much to me to hand it
Uh-huh.
off to somebody that probably wouldn't, you know, work all day and all night on it like I knew I would. So that
Right.
was kind of my way into it. It was like the only thing that makes sense is for me to do this.
Yeah. So let's go back, because the screenplay, I watched Gold Star this week, and I think it's phenomenal. I can't believe it's your first directing thing ever.
Oh, thank you.
And so, but it's a story that does feel very personal. And it was a lot of this script based on your own experiences in your own life at all.
Yeah, it's really loosely inspired. So my dad was much older when I was born. He was
Uh-huh.
63 when I was born, and had
Wow.
a stroke when I was 25.
Oh no.
And I started writing the script actually during that time. He passed away a year after his stroke, but for that whole last
Wow.
year, he couldn't speak. And he was in a wheelchair, and but his brain was still 100% there, so we would interact by moving letters on a magnet board. And
Wow.
yeah, I think I just needed, I felt, I didn't realize it then, and I didn't even realize it until like after I released the film and people that had been through something similar saw it. But I think I felt just really isolated as a young person, you know, right after college. You're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, you're pursuing your career, and then you're stuck home, like taking care of your elderly parent, and that's not
Wow.
something that that many 25-year-olds have experienced. So the way I process things is by through art. So I
Hmm.
started, you know, my dad would be sitting in his wheelchair in the same room as me, and I would be writing Gold Star. So it was really
Wow.
about that feeling about somebody being trapped, but there's a lot of differences. Like in real life, I handled it like a champ. Like as good as anyone could in a situation like that. I was like there for my dad and I wasn't trying to run away and stuff, and I had a great relationship with him. So for me, I wanted to make a film about like somebody who's just completely ill-equipped to be in this situation emotionally,
Yeah.
and how does somebody who's young and who just you know, doesn't want to be a care, you know, nobody wants to be doing that, but what is it like to be somebody who is just in like deep denial about everything going on and processes it in ways that are maybe really unhealthy.
Wow.
So that's like that's the major shift from like real life to the film that I made with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say that your intention from the very beginning of writing that was to make it, right? Or at least to kind of, if you didn't direct it, you would at least produce it, help get the indie film made. Like it was created to be something that you could show your talents through.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like my first thought was I'm writing this and I'm going to act in it. Like I wrote that role
Gotcha.
knowing what I'm capable of and also knowing like what I kind of wanted to do to challenge me.
Yeah.
Um and what makes sense, and it's just playing a different version of myself so I can I can do that. So yeah, that was the intention, and I really went at it hard from the beginning. Like I think because I was starting to do it while all of these things and it goes back to the control and like what I was saying about what we're all going through with this pandemic now, like feeling at that point in my life I really felt like I wasn't in control of so many things with my dad being sick,
Mm,
and I needed to do something to feel, and especially being in a career as an actor, you're in zero control. So everything in my life was so untethered that
right.
that film for me became the thing that I was like, I am going to just do this. And that's, that's what I set my mind on doing, just getting that done. And as you know, it takes years, but,
Right, right. See, I love this idea of writers who really tap into personal emotions and personal feelings because when I do it, when I'm able to put things in, and the stuff that I write isn't necessarily autobiographical, but I put emotions and stuff in that's very core to me because, for one, that feels more honest, you know, things that I've actually experienced. And the other one is it really does, there's some healing in that, right? Of
mm,
just of being able to, like you mentioned, taking struggles and turning them into art. Like there's something really special about that.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's so I think back to it and I'm like, wow, I shot that film. I filmed it. We were filming 2 years after he passed away, like in the
Oh, wow.
hospital that he stayed
Mm,
in, you know, using his hospital equipment in our house that was his, like real props.
wow.
And to me, I remember when I was doing it, I was like, ah, this feels so long after he passed away. This feels like I'm not, and I was so weird about it. I wanted to like really just attack it. I was like, I'm not gonna my I got really, yeah, like I'm doing this for my dad. I don't want to
Uh,
be I wanted, I don't want too much time to pass. I want to just like attack the process of mourning, I think is how it felt.
oh, right, right. Yeah.
And yeah, now I look back and I'm like, 2 years after he passed away is no time at all to go from like writing it, raising the money, and shooting. So
Sure.
yeah, I think once the film came out, I finally had that moment where when people saw it, where I was like, oh wow, people people connect with this and have been through something similar, and that's where I started to finally feel catharsis, actually. I think.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been such a, yeah, because it takes so many years, it's a weird process.
So I'm curious, since this story was so personal for you, it's not like a trick that you can repeat, right? I mean, like there's only so many big things that we go through in life. Is there kind of a fear of like you're going to keep making movies, but they're just not going to tap into that core because they don't have that personal connection to you in the same way that this film did?
I think I don't think I'm. Yeah, I mean, right after Gold Star, I was afraid that I wouldn't have any more ideas because
Right.
that was the first thing I did, and it was so all consuming that I just couldn't
Hmm.
really think about anything else. But right towards the end of it, I started to write another screenplay, and it still feels really, really personal to me, actually, but it's
Yeah.
not in an obvious way. So I think that's what I'm learning of, like, wait, what themes am I interested in, and how can I explore them in different ways through different characters and different environments. So I think it's more about, like, growing my voice as an artist, and I think that's what I was afraid of. Like, I don't know that I know my voice yet because I'm so new to this. So yeah, I'm definitely still obviously finding that. So I think it's more of a fear of that, like not having that feel defined to me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it makes me think, like you mentioned, your next script was kind of a genre thing. And I think a lot of writers starting out are like, well, I don't want to tell my own story because I want to do this, action movie. I want to do this cool sci-fi horror thing. But the truth is like that transparency, whatever is true and honest to you, is going to come out if you allow it.
Yep.
And no matter what you're writing, that it
Yeah.
that it should be personal in that way.
Yeah, I think it's like continually questioning. For me, I just, and this is why I said, like, why I like doing what I'm into is because of working on things that really excite me. It's because something takes so many years that I think interrogating yourself on the idea of, like, wait, why am I really interested in this? What is it about my connection to this idea and story that I need to express? And I think even figuring that out takes a lot of, self-analysis and time. And I think
Yeah,
it's really, really key, because once you figure that out and can have that conversation with yourself, you can put it out into the world. And that's a really honest thing of just being like, why me writing this script?
yeah. Gosh, that's such a brilliant question to ask before you sit down to write anything. Why me? Why am I the one? Why am I the only person that can tell this story, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing that helps you find your voice, right? Why am
Hmm.
I the only one? I have something unique to bring to this story that no one else can tell. And then secondly, why am I writing this? Because if you don't know why you're writing it, if you're like, oh, one day maybe I'll sell it and get fame, like that's a terrible reason to write a story,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, that sounds so painful.
You have to you have to fully believe in it, otherwise you're not going to get up every morning and write that screenplay.
Yeah, I think you have to be obsessed with it, like,
Right.
really, because it's so much work, it's so many years, it's, you think you're done, and then you're told to just change stuff and throw the edit out, and just, every step of the process is just challenges your love for the script, so
Yeah.
it's so hard. Yeah.
So let's talk about that long process real quick, and we can abbreviate it to not be so painful. But your kind of path to Gold Star, because I want writers to know that it's possible to get your movie made, right? It's
Mhm.
going to take a lot of incredibly hard work. It's going to drain you. It's going to take years, but it is possible. So tell me kind of that journey of you've got this script, it's something that you want to make, you want to star in it. What happened from that point to the point that you're on set?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, from the point where I'd say, like, there's an overall thing I can start with, and that's like,
Yeah.
the whole process I kept just reaching out to people who had been through it before, and just
Mm.
saying, "Here's where I'm at. What's your advice? What can I do? What should I do?" And just, like, continually reaching out to people,
Yeah.
and that's also just a great way to build a community of
Totally.
support
So
and
smart.
to learn from other people. But I always did that from start to finish, and I met so many great people that I talk to constantly now, and we're all like, it's so exciting to watch all of our careers continue to evolve. But
Right.
yeah, so I wrote the script, and then I was just asking people who I had acted in films with and crewed for. I was like, what producers, who do you know, like who could I meet with, who might be interested in this? And the first thing I did was attach my first producer, Katie McGuire, who came on and really worked with me to mold the script even more. She had a lot of connections to helpful people like an attorney, more actors. We brought on two more producers. And then for me, it was just like, all right, we got to figure out how to raise the money with the
Mm,
team. And I think that's a real opportunity to, start to test out the idea of your film with people and how people are going to respond. And for me, it was really obvious from the beginning that people were going to connect to the, honesty of this experience and the fact that it was personal, and that, a lot of it opens up conversations that I think people, don't always have, of how difficult it is to be the caregiver. So that's what I discovered early on. But yeah, we kept, like, we would set a deadline and say, all right, in 4 months, let's see where we're at. Here's three different budget levels, what we can do for it. Let's decide
yeah.
at that point when, if we're going to pull the trigger on shooting, like a few months after that, and just enter like intense pre-pro. And I think we went through pushing the film twice, and I was gonna hire, like, non-actors. I wanted to have it be a real, like, Sean Baker kind
Oh,
of.
yeah.
I had just seen Starlet, actually, and that was, like, a massive influence on me, with an older actress in that film. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's so good.
I haven't.
But yeah, his work is so consistent with how he makes non-actors shine. But I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was obsessed with that idea, and I started to meet with, like, old folks. I'd go to nursing homes and film people talking,
Wow.
and I just grew quickly uncomfortable with it because I'm like, I don't, I'm a first time director. I don't feel like working with, an 80 something year old non actor is something I'm comfortable with on this project. So that's when we brought on a casting director, Judy Bowman, and cast the film right around the time when we locked in the last little bit of money to get us over the edge through a Kickstarter campaign. And then we shot a few months later. But the whole process, it was like continually assessing, like, where are we all at with the team, and how comfortable are we if we to enter pre-pro right now, and to
Yeah.
actually, like, pull the trigger on doing this. Because, like, I really think anyone who writes a film and wants to make sure they get it made should write it thinking about how they could do it with as little funds as possible, and being creative about, and you did this with your film,
Yeah.
writing something that's really smart and uses what you have access to.
Right.
um,
Exactly. Yep.
and I knew I could do that with this film. So, we shot it for not that much money, but it still was took so long to get the money because I had no, like, proof that I could even make a film.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's something about that. I mean, it's every single story that I hear about making a film, there's always two key components. One is that they never give up, right? That you keep going, you keep going, you keep going.
Yeah.
Everybody faces the same hurdles, but it's only the people that keep going that actually end up making something. The second part of that is, I think, just as key, which is finding a team, right? So
Mhm.
like you mentioned from the very beginning, you reached out to people who had been there before, which the problem with filmmaking is it's such a, even though it's a collaborative effort, you feel like you're the only one who's ever struggled with this stuff before.
Yeah,
And
it's
just to hear
terrifying.
someone, yeah, just to hear someone say, "Hey, you're not alone. I've been there before. I know what it's like. This is what I did. This is what I heard someone else did." It's just there's just a peace and healing of just knowing you're not in it alone, right?
Yeah.
But then also having a team around you who believes in the project as much as you do, that is, when you get down, when you get rejected, they're there to lift you back up and carry the torch for you a little bit until you can get back on your feet, right? Like that stuff is so important. And I think a lot of writers especially think, oh, I did my role. Now I'm just going to like pass it on and let everybody else do the work. And that's not really how filmmaking works, right? Like
No.
maybe, yeah, maybe like at one point you would write a script and it would sell and you'd make $1 million. And it doesn't really work like that anymore. And at this point, it very is much about these collaborative efforts and building these teams and getting to know people. And it really requires putting yourself out there and connecting with people. And also, I think connecting with people is the most beautiful part of filmmaking, anyways,
Oh
right?
yeah, some of like my best friends to this day are because of that film. Like
Yeah,
I am so grateful for the people I met on that project. Like I just want to bring them on everything.
yeah,
Like I wish I had a ton of money. I'd just be like making stuff nonstop with them.
right,
Um,
right.
but it's so true. Like and on the surface, like I wore a lot of hats for that film, but
Uh-huh,
the collaboration was the most fun part about it. And like the DP that I worked with, Sorrow, he came on board like a year before because we thought maybe we'll get the money and shoot. And we just kept
uh-huh.
meeting up and going through the shots and talking about the scenes, and like everything was so worked out by the time that we were on set that I didn't have to like that pressure of directing myself acting was really relaxed because I didn't have to worry about the camera as much. Like if we had to
Yeah,
rearrange stuff for one of the scenes because like an actor changed blocking, which I'm totally cool with. I want actors to feel very free because I'm an actor. I knew that we'd figure it out easily because we knew why we set it up the way it was in the first place, so we could easily just regroup. So
yeah,
it's just like finding finding your tribe, yeah, and
yeah,
it's so
yeah.
much
People you can
fun.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious because I feel like my childhood is very similar to yours in that I was painfully shy in high school, really struggled. Oddly enough, I always a writer, but I didn't know how to turn that into a job. But I loved film, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do some acting stuff. So I did like extra work in high school and all that kind of stuff, and
Oh, nice.
it didn't fit with me at all. I could never be an actor. And I eventually found out how to be a writer after a stopover in music for a little bit.
Mm,
But it's always been a challenge for me as this painfully shy person to learn how to network, to learn how to connect with other people, to learn how to put myself out there. So I would love to hear, because I think a lot of writers have this in common, right? We're writers because we're introverts and we stay at home all the time and we disappear into these worlds in our brains,
yeah.
and that becomes very natural for us. So, how did you overcome some of those struggles of being shy, of being an introvert, and having some of that anxiety to really learn how to connect with people and put yourself out there?
Yeah, I think it's about balance and learning like how can I be, comfortable and
Yeah.
be me and find the people that will get that. I think I've stopped going to a lot of those just like general networking events because for me, when I just walk into a huge room and it's full of people, I'm just full of anxiety and don't do well in
Yeah.
those situations. But if I'm at a film festival and like I really struggle with that kind of stuff. I I've learned how to like push through it, and I think it's about like just knowing what my limits are and setting like boundaries for like with people also of like,
Mm.
I can't do 5 coffee meetings in one day. Like I
Right.
have to just like say to some people, look, this just has to be on the phone because I think early on I really burned out of just trying to like, connect to as many people as possible and learn from everyone, and I can't do that. I'm not an extrovert, but I can turn
Yeah.
it on. I can turn it on and like come across that way. But yeah, so even during this quarantine, it's been funny because everyone like wants to talk on the phone and wants to catch up, and I've had to say to space it out and be like, "Hey, I can't talk today. Let's talk tomorrow." Just like
Yeah.
really with everything in my life, I think it's about recognizing how am I most comfortable, and just setting up those limits and try and making sure I don't burn out. But yeah, and I'd say like finding a community. I was a member of I'm still a member, but not I don't go to the meetings anymore, of a film collective called the Film Shop,
Mm.
and I was so nervous for that right when it started, but it's like a structured environment where you go in there, and it begins with a presentation, and then two people will workshop their stuff that night. And that's great because it's not like everyone wandering around a room walking up to people with drinks like a networking thing. It's
Right.
a structured place where you meet people and workshop. So I think finding things like that, like if you're really shy and want to meet people, look to a community that has some kind of like really structured thing that you can operate within. Yeah, I think that I don't know. I feel like I rambled with that because this is definitely still something
No,
I'm struggling with
I
because I love just being alone and writing.
I'm right there with you, and it's a constant struggle for me too. I do find that I'm a product of environment, right? So I'm very much whatever my environment it is, I kind of soak it up. So like you and I, we first met at Oxford Film Festival. I
Yeah.
think we were at this after party in a small table, so it's just the two of us. Where I can really, if I can just talk to somebody one on one, I can really thrive. If it's like a party environment where it's like a circle, I can't talk. My brain stops working, and I get so uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it as part of that is finding what your environment is. The other side of that is if I go to, let's say, like a party where I know a few people, but it's like in a neighborhood and it's a bunch of friends, I completely shut down. I don't know how to act in that scenario, even like if it is people I know. But if I go to a film festival, there's something that clicks in me about being around like-minded people, right? Same thing happens
Yeah.
if I go to a comic book convention, right? There's something empowering about finding your tribe, and it feels comfortable. And so I think if you can learn to look for the places where you're most comfortable, uh,
Exactly.
and not ignoring that, not pretending to be something else, but finding your spot. I think that can go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, and film festivals are an easier version of that because there's just obvious things to talk about. It's like, "Oh, hey, what have you seen
Right.
at this festival?" It's like
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
in. There's a conversation right there.
Yeah. You kind of have a shorthand for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I want to hear about your writing process a little bit and just kind of where you write, when you write. Is it come easy for you? Is it a struggle? How do you take an idea and get it all the way to a finished script? Tell me a little bit about how you write.
Yeah, I think I'm actually really good at writing at home. Like I can kind of just like enter a zone of concentration even if like I don't need
Hmm.
to run away to an office or a coffee shop. I think I'm actually more distracted in coffee shops. But yeah, I really like listening to music when I'm writing,
Hmm.
and like finding the tone, figuring out like what's the tone of the piece I'm writing, and then finding the musical match to that and using that as like a nice way in to getting my brain into this like meditative state.
Yeah,
Um
I do the same thing. I'll create a playlist for each film that I do. And what it does is when you write to that playlist all the time, when you put the playlist on, it immediately takes you back to that spot of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
for the script that I'm in development on the feature right now, I listen to just this same album every single time I wrote. And
Yeah,
that sounds like maddening, but it actually just but it kind of becomes like background music after a while of just like, yeah,
right.
this cueing your thought process into this world. So for me, I generally start with like a free write. Like I won't go right into writing my script. I'll just kind of like open
Mhm.
up my journal and just start like, warming my brain up and doing I kind of like to do like a brain dump. Like, all right, what do I just need to like get out of my system right now? And I'll normally even like say to myself, all right, just 15 minutes of this, and then I'll dive into the script. But I'm also funny. Like, it takes me so long when I'm writing because if I know there's a scene I want to work on, I'll have to read the whole script before
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I don't know what other people are like, but I have to go through the whole thing because I'm like and then I'll notice stuff I want to change earlier on, and it'll take me like
right.
2 hours just to get to that scene.
Yeah, I don't necessarily read the whole thing before doing the scene, but I get it because there is something about the flow of a script, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
intuitive. It's not something that you can like beat out with cards. You have to feel the flow as you read it of like where are the peaks and where are the valleys and where does this scene fit into that. I totally relate to that.
Yeah, and like that's it's I feel cursed needing to do that because it takes forever. But I also like when I'm writing, I watching the movie in my head too. So I like
Hmm.
to just watch the movie down. Essentially, is my version of that. And yeah, I don't know. I think like I know the things I struggle with more than others, and I try to just like early on in the writing process not worry about certain things. I've just like kind of accepted that dialogue is the thing, like, and figuring out the characters' specific voices comes later for me. And
Okay.
I much more get just like uh I don't know, like setting the scene, and I kind of start with like environment and mood first and like what's actually happening with the characters, and then the nitty gritty of like, all right, what's the how are they what's the subtext here, and how can they be hiding that, and to what extent, and how does each character speak. Those are the things I just don't even worry about
Right.
early
Yeah.
early on. But I think for me it's really just like a meditative kind of process of just trying not to, it's funny, like trying not to think too hard until like really far along in the process, and just be really free with it until I feel like I've reached a dead end.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of young writers, especially, they start out like reading all the books, right? Which is what I did in the
Yeah, me
beginning
too.
too.
Yeah.
And you get all that data and all that structure, and then you start to try to apply that in your first draft, and it becomes so dry and so boring. And you hit all the beats, but there's no heart in it, right? So what I
Yeah.
started doing was flipping it, where my first draft is it's a complete mess. Like if you read it, it doesn't make any sense, but it's got that heart in it and it's got the soul in it. And then I go back and apply all those kind of structure and character things and make it unique and make it stand out. But it takes just getting all that out at first. I always compare it to a first draft is you're just creating the clay that in
Mm.
the rewrite you're going to turn into a sculpture, right?
Yeah, I call it my pizza dough. Like my first draft is
That's
always
awesome.
yeah, my first draft is always actually like really short. Some people do like a
Yep.
150-page first draft. Mine is like a little ball of pizza dough where the core is really strong. I know like I know what the center of it is, and then like in subsequent drafts I'm like rolling it out and making
Yeah.
sure it's really, a beautiful little pizza circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first draft is like this, delicious little ball of dough. It's just
That's
kinda like
awesome. I love that.
nothing yet, but it's there.
Yeah. Do you write, because you direct your own stuff, do you write in kind of like, I don't know, shorthand for yourself of, "Oh, I already know what I'm gonna do here, so I don't need to explain that," or do you write as if you're just writing for anyone?
Yeah, I think I write for anyone, but I also add a lot of, like, camera stuff actually even really early on. Like, if I have an
Yeah,
instinct of like, "Oh, we're gonna push in here," I just write it,
yeah,
and just leave it in, until, I have to, and, stuff gets changed later. But, yeah,
right.
I really just I like to try and see the film really early on, but there's no shorthand. My screenplays are pretty novelistic actually early on. Even
Okay.
though they're
Yeah,
short, they're like I really drag out descriptions more than anything, I think, because I'm trying to like really see the environment, and
right.
any random detail I'll throw in there, and then I become it sounds like it makes no sense because the first draft is so short, but then it becomes much more, I think, just efficient in later drafts, but longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that. I also write short first draft, but I write hardly any description. Like, and I think it's because I'm not a visual person. I have no desires to be a director. I think I'd make a terrible director. I don't really see the movie in my head. I'm more moved by the just kind of magic of it and of people talking and of
Mm.
connecting and of an occasional kind of like sentimental object that weaves its way through, and I start doing like the math problems of like, oh, this shows up here and again here and then it pays off here, and like that's what really drives me more so than the visual of it. That totally makes sense to me.
Mm. Yeah, what was the I don't know much about like what went into This World Alone. What for you like did when you started writing that were you just like I want to write it's actually like similar to your question for me. Were you thinking like I want to just write something that I know can get done or
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we
yeah.
we we said we want to shoot something locally. I had this idea that we originally were going to do for a short film. That was kind of the first 10 minutes of the film. That first 10 minutes, most of it got cut, anyways. But yeah, it was about what can we pull off, minimum number of characters. I want to do everything I do has to have a genre bent, so I added the post-apocalyptic thing. Um, but it and then we kind of found the locations, and a lot of that stuff changed anyways, and luckily I had Jordan
Mm,
Noel, who's directs all my stuff from the very beginning, so he can do the visual work and I get to work on dialogue and plotting and all that. But the fun thing about that movie is it's a road trip movie, so structurally you have the road out to the destination and then you have the road back, and each piece is a
mm.
mirror image of itself. And so it came really quickly because of that. Just the structure of it gave it a very natural kind of way of writing it.
Yeah, that's like similar to my next film. It's about a woman who's running across the desert. So there's just a specific like, okay, she's at mile 30.
Right, yeah,
And
that's
she's just
awesome.
running forward. So structure that was like really it made sense that way. I was like, oh, and she's done with the race. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about Gold Star because watching it, that's something that stood out to me is it's very slice of life. It's
Mm,
very like you were completely involved the whole time, but it's not a super kind of structured thing. Like you feel like you're just watching these scenes from this woman's life and it's very engaging. But I'm curious about the kind of plotting of that. Is that something that you played with a lot in post, even and in editing of like where to put things? Was it always on the page exactly in that order? How
a
did you kind of structure the
ton.
film?
I mean, honestly, I don't even remember the structure of the script. We played around with
Right.
the challenging thing with that movie was pacing because it's a 90-page screenplay, but the first cut of that film was like 2 hours and 10 minutes. Because
Wow,
it's
really?
such yeah, because it's such a quiet movie with
Yep.
moments of, description on the script on the page that say like Vicky walks into the piano room, picks up a book, and sees a note her father wrote. That on screen, that's one line on a script. That on screen is like 40 seconds.
Right,
So
right, yeah.
we cut a lot of stuff like that out of it was just like, for me, it was less about structure and more about like shaping the pacing in the edit was a huge challenge. And the editor, Chris, did an awesome job in like helping me figure that out, and also like really we had a lot of conversations about like, okay, what is this kind of film? And it's yeah, it's a slice of life. It's watching this woman process these things and deal with it and run away from it and
Mm,
come back to it and
yeah,
accept what's going on at the end. So it's definitely not, yeah, your normal 3 act structure for sure, which made it challenging to cut because it's like, all right, how is the audience going to feel this whole, are they going to be in it, are they going to be checked out? So I think
yeah,
we really just like committed to the kind of film we knew we wanted to make, and yeah, found it and kept challenging it and questioning it and being, I was really willing, I wasn't precious about anything in the edit. There's
yeah.
so much on the cutting room floor that didn't make it in.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you feel like you're able to compartmentalize your hats? So like I'm a director at this moment, I'm a writer at this moment, I'm an actor at this moment, or do they all run in together for you? Like I'm curious like which hat you wear when you're in editing, right? Because like, oh gosh, I really love my take there as an
Mm.
actor, but as a director, I didn't love the shot as much as a writer. What like How do you balance all that?
I think I'm like, oh, I'm definitely aware of all of it. Like even just looking at myself, I'm like, oh God, and the sound of my voice, it all gets really
All right.
really tiring after a while. But I think for me, it's about just continually reminding myself, like, what's the best version of this film, and being really aware that certain things are just going to be sacrificed. Um,
Right.
and then it goes back to, again, like we said earlier, surrounding yourself with collaborators that you really trust.
Mm,
And like when you start to have that battle of like, oh, will that take and this, and as a director, I prefer that, but the focus was kind of out. The focus is a little
yeah.
out on this shot, but the acting's really good. And then just like being really honest about that with the team and saying to Chris, the editor, like, hey, what do you think? Like, here's what's going on in my head. Let me just verbalize this like internal struggle to you. What do you think? And just
Yeah.
talking it through the whole time. But I think it's so important, like if you are wearing multiple hats, to just be aware, like, wait, why am I having this reaction? And is it, what direction should I go in? What's best for the film?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's great advice about having extra voices in there. Like, I can't even imagine having two of those jobs, much less three of them. And I'm assuming you kind of produced as well, right? So like
Oh
you're
yeah,
wearing
definitely.
every possible hat, which I'm sure.
Oh
So what
yeah.
about moving forward? Are you writing things you don't direct, or directing things you didn't write, or is that an interest for you? Or are you like, no, this is my thing. I do all these jobs, and that's what I want to keep doing.
Oh, it's totally an interest. I directed a short last year that I wrote that was supposed to premiere at Oxford. It's going to be online in June, the
Right?
virtual
Yeah.
festival. The next feature I'm writing, I will be directing, but I'm always writing, and I'm definitely open to like having someone else direct something I wrote. I'm not
Yeah.
so. I think it's just, yeah, it goes back to, I just want to make good stuff with good people. So yeah, I think that's definitely my approach to
Yeah.
it.
I love that, and it's very fun. That's funny. My kind of slogan for filmmaking is making beautiful stuff with beautiful people. So
Yeah,
very much along those same lines.
exactly.
All right, so we'll wrap up here. So every episode, I ask the same 5 questions of writers. So first question is, what do you write?
I'm really interested in stories about people that don't realize their full potential or are struggling with that. People who are lonely and locked inside themselves and trapped.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's great. What's your proudest accomplishment?
Yeah, I'd say pulling off Gold Star. And
Pretty
like
amazing.
being stubborn enough to have the first thing I direct be a feature.
And then doing it all over again.
Here we go again. Yep.
Yeah. How do you define success?
Being able to go to bed at night feeling like I yeah, my dad used to always say like accomplish something every single
Mm,
day. And I think for me success is just like not even, having awards to hang on a wall like, ooh, you won an award at a festival for a film. For me it's about having the ability to be able to make things. It kind of goes back to the good films with good people, just having that ability, being lucky enough to be somebody who can tell stories and to continue doing that. Like to me the ultimate success is to be able to do this my whole life.
what writers do you most look up to, and why?
Oh God, I mean Sam Shepard I really love. I was just like going through my room, look at my childhood room, gonna reread his last book, Spy of the First Person. I really loved, if you ever read the memoirs of Carl Nausgaard, My Struggle. Those were talk about like honest self interrogation. I was reading the first one on the subway in New York and missed my stop and ended up in the Bronx and looked up and was like, "Wow, that's a good book." Now I'm nowhere near where I lived, or nowhere near where I
Wow.
live. But yeah, yeah, I'm always reading. I think those two are the first ones that pop into my head for sure.
Were you involved in theater and stuff in high school? Or is that still a passion for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I the theater program in my high school wasn't so incredible, and I
Uh-huh.
also felt because I was the cliche was true in my high school that if you were one of the quiet kids, you didn't really get like attention in theater. Like
Right.
it
Yeah.
was just like really typical drama students that like uh you know the musical theater cliche loud kids
Sure. Yeah.
would get in all
Yeah.
the plays, and I was just kind of always in the background. So yeah, I was, and I went to Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute through NYU. So I definitely like stay. I'd love to write a play one day. That'd be awesome. I should just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. After getting beat down so much on a film, the play is awfully seductive.
Have you written
Um,
theater? Have you written
I
plays?
haven't at all, no, but for the same reasons, I've been thinking about it recently. Of like, gosh, I've been working so hard to try to get a second film off the ground, and I was like, gosh, wouldn't it be great to just write something, grab some friends, and get a theater space, just go make it happen, you know?
Yeah, be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Final question: what advice would you give to your younger self?
Ugh, so much advice. I think don't be so hard on yourself. I think
Yeah.
I really would beat myself up a lot, and just like enjoy things more, I think.
Yeah. Finally, where can we find out more info? Where can people follow you? Where can they watch Gold Star and keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, on social media, I'm at Victoria Negri across the board, Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, you can sign up to get like email updates through me through my website at victorianegri.com. And yeah, Gold Star's on Amazon Prime. So if you watch it, yeah, write like a word or two review. That'd be awesome.
And I highly recommend it. It's a great film, amazing debut. So thank you so much for hanging out and
Yeah.
chatting today.
Thanks,
Really,
Hudson.
really
This is
good
like,
chat.
I'm inspired. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Needed this.
very cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a bunch.
Thanks.
Thanks so much to Victoria for chatting with me. It always feels so rewarding to find someone who has been through the process and lived to tell about it. I know it's possible for you guys as well, I promise. Please check out Gold Star, now streaming on Amazon. And if you're looking for more inspiration, collaboration, and accountability, I highly recommend you check out ScriptBlast Members, an online productivity and accountability community to help you finish more scripts faster, upgrade your network, and turn your hobby into a career. You can try it free at members.scriptblast.com. If you have any questions about screenwriting or what we do here at ScriptBlast, you can reach me at Hudson at scriptblast.com. Look forward to hearing from you. See you next time.